I'm Daisy, an 18-year-old university student from Florida. My parents divorced when I was 12, and I've been living with my mom ever since. Last year, my dad passed away from cancer, which was heartbreaking for me because we were incredibly close. Before he died, he left me a considerable amount of money in his will, but I wasn't allowed to access it until I turned 18. This year, I finally reached that milestone, and something completely unexpected happened that changed everything. One afternoon, my stepdad Arlo, who's in his mid-40s and has been married to my mom for 5 years, called me into his room. Arlo and I have never had the smoothest relationship. I've always tried to keep things polite, but he's never been particularly kind to me. So, when he asked me to talk, I wasn't sure what to expect. When I entered, Arlo got straight to the point. "Daisy," he said, "we need to talk about something serious." I asked him what it was, and to my surprise, he brought up the inheritance my dad had left me. He suggested that I give the money to my stepbrother David to help him pay for college. According to Arlo, David wanted to attend university just like I was, and Arlo believed it was only fair for me to share the money. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. It felt unreal that he would even think to ask me such a thing. I calmly told him, "Arlo, I don't think I can do that. This money was left to me by my dad. It's something I might need in the future." Arlo didn't seem to care about my reasoning. "Don't be ridiculous," he snapped. "You don't need that money. David needs it more, and it would be selfish not to help." His dismissive tone irritated me, but I stood my ground. "I'm sorry, Arlo, but the answer is no," I said firmly. His face darkened with anger, and he raised his voice. "Daisy, don't push me," he warned. I was stunned by his reaction. The tension in the room was palpable, and I could feel his frustration boiling over. But I knew I couldn't back down, not when this money was my dad's final gift to me. I looked at Arlo and said calmly, "There's no need to get upset. I answered your question honestly. Saying no isn't meant to offend you. It's about setting clear boundaries. I'm standing firm on my decision. If you're angry because I said no, perhaps you need to reflect on your attitude. Let's not forget, you're a guest in this house too. So let's handle this maturely." Without waiting for him to respond, I added, "This conversation is over. Goodbye." Then I turned and walked away before he could argue further. Arlo's behavior didn't surprise me in the slightest. Based on his past actions, I had a feeling it was only a matter of time before he tried something like this. You might be wondering where my mom was during all of this. Well, that's another part of the story. My mom, Rose, didn't seem to notice Arlo's manipulative nature. She always defended him, almost as if she couldn't see his faults. I knew she loved me, but I didn't want to ruin her view of him. So, I tried to keep the peace and get along with Arlo for her sake. At the time, my mom was out of town, which is why she wasn't there to witness what was happening. If she had been home, she would have been furious with Arlo for putting me in this situation. He only dared to pull the stunt because she wasn't around. But what Arlo didn't know was that I was fully aware of his manipulative tactics. As I walked out of the room, Arlo followed me, his voice rising in frustration. "You're being a terrible sister, Daisy. All I'm asking is for you to help your stepbrother. Why is that so hard for you?" I stopped and turned to face him. "Arlo, if you want me to consider your request, give me one good reason why I should." Before Arlo could answer, David entered the room, looking annoyed. "What's with all the arguing?" "You woke me up," he said. Arlo gestured toward David and said, "Tell her, David. Tell Daisy what we talked about earlier." David seemed confused at first, but then his face lit up. "Oh, right, the inheritance money. Daisy, Dad, and I were discussing it. And we agreed that you need to give it to us. It's for something really important." I raised an eyebrow. "Important, huh? You mean for your university tuition, right?" David hesitated, glancing at Arlo. Well, no. It's actually for this business idea we have." "Business idea?" I asked, narrowing my eyes. "Arlo told me it was for your tuition." Arlo quickly interjected, "That's what I meant. It's for David's future. A business is part of that." I crossed my arms and looked between the two of them. Really? Because it sounds like you can't even keep your story straight. David shrugged. Whatever. We need the money, Daisy, so just hand it over already. I couldn't believe the audacity of these two. It was clear they were trying to manipulate me, but I wasn't about to fall for their schemes. David's sudden enthusiasm about his so-called university plans was laughable. Yes, yes. I just woke up. Okay? Of course, it's for university. I totally want to go to university. I demand that money for myself. Thanks, he declared confidently. I crossed my arms, unimpressed. Well, that's a cute little speech, but not cute enough. The answer is still no. Why not, Daisy? He knows what he wants. Arlo jumped in, trying to sound persuasive, but only succeeding in annoying me further. This isn't up for discussion. You're not getting the money, I said firmly. Arlo smirked. We'll see about that. The rest of the evening was painfully tense. While Arlo was known for his petty pranks and testing everyone's patience, this behavior was on a whole new level. His desperation was practically oozing out of him, and David's entitled attitude wasn't helping. Something didn't sit right with me. Arlo had always been selfish and immature, but this was different. He was too insistent and oddly aggressive. It was as if he was hiding something bigger. As I started cleaning up after dinner, Arlo cornered me in the kitchen, his tone turning more condescending. Daisy, stop being childish. You need to grow up and do the right thing. I raised an eyebrow. Oh, and the right thing is handing over my inheritance? Are you okay, Arlo? Because that's not happening. Just wait until I tell Mom about all of this. Arlo's face turned red. Don't you dare tell Rose, he snapped. I blinked, surprised at his sudden anger. Why not? She's my mom. She deserves to know how her husband and stepson are treating me. He leaned in closer, his voice lowering but still full of frustration. You think she cares? Daisy, listen to me. I'm just trying to help you. If you bring this up to her, she'll get mad at you for being dramatic and selfish. She won't side with you. I smirked. Well, Arlo, that's a risk I'm more than willing to take. His fists clenched, and his voice rose again. I'm warning you. Don't tell your mother. His reaction was louder and more intense than I'd ever seen. It was clear he wasn't just trying to intimidate me, he was panicking. It only confirmed my suspicions, something shady was going on, and he was desperate to keep me from finding out. The next day, I called my mom. I had to tread carefully, knowing how much she adored Arlo despite his flaws. Hey, Mom. How are you doing? I asked, trying to keep my tone casual. I'm good, sweetheart. How about you? She replied warmly. Not great, Mom. Something's off with Arlo and David. Especially Arlo. He's acting really strange. My mom sighed. Oh, Daisy, don't start. I know you're not a fan of Arlo, but he's not a bad guy. He's just different. Mom, listen to me. He asked for the inheritance money. What? Are you serious? Her tone shifted, sounding more concerned. Yes, both him and David. They demanded it. Arlo said it was for David's education, but I think something else is going on. He even got aggressive when I told him I'd tell you. Mom hesitated. That doesn't sound like him. Are you sure? I exhaled in frustration. Mom, I know you love him for whatever reason. But this is real. Something's not right. I think they're hiding something and I'm going to find out what it is. He practically begged me not to talk to you. She paused for a long moment. I don't know, baby. I feel like I need more proof before jumping to conclusions. Don't worry, Mom. I assured her. I'll get all the proof you need. Just wait and see. As I hung up the phone, I couldn't help but feel sorry for my mom. Arlo's manipulative charm had her completely under his spell. But I wasn't about to let him get away with whatever scheme he and David were cooking up. Late that night, determined to uncover the truth, I used the family computer. I didn't expect to find much, but Arlo's carelessness worked in my favor. He had forgotten to log out of his email. That mistake revealed more than I anticipated. What I discovered was shocking. Arlo had been exchanging emails with a woman named Bella, and their content was incriminating. From the tone and content, it was clear they were having an affair. My heart pounded as I read further. The emails mentioned Arlo planning to divorce my mom and run off with Bella. What's worse, they talked about securing a large sum of money soon for some dubious-sounding business venture. Although Arlo wasn't foolish enough to detail illegal activity in writing, he was certainly foolish enough to leave evidence of his affair. I took screenshots of everything and knew I had to gather more information. I decided David might be my best lead. The next day, I approached him with my phone, discreetly recording our conversation. "Hey, David," I greeted casually. "Hello, Daisy. You seem happy today," he replied, looking suspicious. "Why not?" "It's a beautiful day," I said with a smile. "I've been thinking about what you and Arlo said. I'm considering giving you the money." David's eyes lit up. "Really? That's great. I'll tell him right away." "Not so fast," I interrupted. "Before I hand over anything, I need to confirm something. This money is for your college tuition, right?" David hesitated, but nodded quickly. "Oh, yeah, right. My college tuition. Definitely." "Okay," I said, pretending to believe him. "I just want to make sure you're serious about using it responsibly." "Of course I'm serious," he insisted.
Good.
"And Bella, she's serious too?" I asked nonchalantly. David's expression froze.
Bella?
"Who's Bella?" "Oh, you know," I said, maintaining my calm. "The college advisor?" David's stammering response was interrupted by Arlo storming into the room. "I don't appreciate you interrogating my son." Arlo snapped, his face flushed with anger. "I wasn't interrogating him," I replied evenly. "I just wanted to know how my money would be used." "Well, once you give someone money, it's not your business anymore," Arlo said smugly. "Is that really how you speak to someone considering giving you a large sum of money?" I shot back. Arlo's expression darkened. "You're not considering you're giving us that money. If you don't, you're out of this house." End of discussion. David's mouth fell open. "Dad, that wasn't." "Quiet," Arlo barked. "I'm the parent. I make the rules. Daisy doesn't get to argue about this." My heart raced, but I didn't argue further. Little did Arlo know my phone was still recording everything. With evidence piling up, I left the room silently, giving him one last glare before retreating to my room. Once inside, I locked the door and began organizing everything I had gathered. Voice recordings, screenshots of Arlo's incriminating emails, and notes on his and David's behavior. It felt like I was building a case as a detective on a TV drama. I knew the storm was coming, and I had to be prepared. When I finally felt ready, I called my mom. "Hey, Mom," I began, trying to keep my voice steady. "Hi, love," she replied warmly. "How are you?" "Mom, are you sitting down?" I asked, bracing myself.
Why?
"What's wrong?" she asked, her tone shifting to concern. "I have some bad news to share. It's about Arlo. You're not going to like it." I laid out everything I had discovered, starting with Arlo's demands for my inheritance money and ending with his affair. My mom tried to defend him at first, but when I played the audio recordings, her defenses crumbled. "Why would he say those things to you?" she murmured, her voice trembling. "Why would he do this to me? Why would he be so cruel?" Her heartbreak was palpable, but I knew she needed to face the truth. "Mom, you deserve better," I said softly. "He's been manipulating and lying to you. It's time to put yourself first." Caught off guard and visibly shaken, Arlo tried to regain control of the situation. "You have no proof," he muttered, avoiding eye contact. "Really?" my mom retorted, holding up a folder filled with the private investigator's findings. "You're telling me this is nothing? Financial records, emails, texts, photos. It's all here, Arlo. And I've already sent copies to my lawyer." "You wouldn't dare." Arlo spat, his face turning a deep shade of red. "Oh, I would," my mom shot back, her voice steely. "You don't threaten my daughter, steal from my family, and expect to get away with it. Did you really think I'd let you turn this house into a front for criminal activity? You're done here, Arlo." David, who had been sitting silently until now, finally spoke up. "Dad, is this true? Were you really using me as part of your plan?" "David, don't listen to them," Arlo pleaded. "They're trying to turn you against me." Everything I did was for us, for our future. David hesitated, looking between his father and the incriminating evidence. His face crumpled. You told me it was just for college, Dad. You lied to me. At that moment, I decided to speak up. David, your dad wasn't just lying to you, he was using you. He planned to drag you into his crimes without caring about what might happen to you. He doesn't care about anyone but himself. David looked down, guilt and anger warring on his face. I didn't know, he whispered. Well, now you do, my mom said, her voice softer. And you have a choice, David. You can leave with your dad, or you can stay here and start making better decisions for your future. Arlo's head snapped toward my mom. You can't just kick me out. This is my house, too.
No, Arlo.
This is my house. My mom corrected him. And you're leaving tonight. I've already spoken to the police and my lawyer. If you don't pack your things and leave voluntarily, they'll escort you out. You're bluffing. Arlo scoffed, but the panic in his eyes betrayed him. Try me, my mom replied coldly. The police are already on their way. They'll be very interested to hear about your little business venture. And as for Bella, well, I'm sure they'll have some questions for her too. Realizing he had no way out, Arlo finally dropped the act. Fine, he shouted, throwing his hands in the air. You want me gone? I'm gone. But don't think this is the last you've heard from me. Actually, I'm pretty sure it is, I said, unable to hide my smirk. Good luck explaining all this to the cops.
Arlo.
Oh, and smile. You're still on camera. David stood frozen, clearly struggling with the weight of everything he'd just learned. My mom turned to him, her tone gentle. David, you're welcome to stay here if you're willing to take responsibility for your actions and leave your father's schemes behind. But that's your decision. David nodded slowly, his eyes filling with tears. I'll stay. I don't want to end up like him. As the police arrived, Arlo was led away, still muttering threats under his breath. Bella's involvement ensured that both of them faced serious consequences for their plans. With Arlo out of the picture, the house felt lighter, as if a storm had finally passed. David, humbled and remorseful, began working part-time while attending community college. He apologized to me and my mom repeatedly, and over time, we started to mend our relationship. As for my mom and me, we were closer than ever. We had stood up to a toxic force in our lives and come out stronger for it. Sitting together on the couch one evening, my mom turned to me with a smile. You know, Daisy, you're braver than I ever gave you credit for. I smiled back. I learned from the best. Arlo's face contorted with fear as the sirens grew louder, the flashing blue and red lights illuminating his panic. For years, he'd thrived on manipulation and deceit, always believing he was one step ahead. But now, standing in the harsh spotlight of his own reckoning, the reality of his situation came crashing down. Rose, Daisy, listen to me. Arlo began, his voice cracking. Don't waste your breath. Mom interrupted sharply. You've already said enough to ruin yourself. The only thing left is for justice to be served. As the police car pulled up in front of the house, officers stepped out, their authoritative presence silencing any further arguments. One of them approached us. Rose Johnson, the officer asked, glancing at his notepad. Yes, that's me, Mom replied confidently. I called earlier to report fraudulent activity and threats against my family. Everything you need is right here. She handed over a thick folder containing the private investigator's report, my recordings, and screenshots of incriminating emails. Arlo tried one last-ditch effort to save himself. This is a misunderstanding. Rose is just overreacting. I can explain. The officer cut him off. Save it for your lawyer. Sir, you're under arrest for fraud, conspiracy, and intimidation. David, pale and trembling, backed into a corner. I didn't know the full extent of it, I swear, he stammered. The officer turned to him. You'll have your chance to explain, but right now, we need you to come with us for questioning. As Arlo and David were led away, the weight of everything lifted from our shoulders. My mom turned to me, her eyes filled with a mixture of relief and pride. Well, Daisy, she said, we did it. I nodded, holding back tears. We stood up for ourselves, Mom. They won't hurt us anymore. In the weeks that followed, the fallout from Arlo's arrest rippled through our lives. The live stream we had broadcasted during the confrontation went viral, sparking conversations about family betrayal, financial manipulation, and standing up against abuse. People reached out to us, sharing their own stories and offering support. Arlo and Bella's schemes were exposed in full detail during the investigation. It turned out their business was indeed a front for money laundering and other illegal activities. Both faced severe legal consequences, with Bella's criminal record adding more weight to her charges. As for David, he received a lighter sentence due to his limited involvement and age. However, he was ordered to participate in a rehabilitation program and pay restitution for his role in the schemes. Life after the ordeal was peaceful and refreshing. Mom and I grew closer, our bond stronger than ever. We celebrated our victories with quiet evenings on the patio, sharing laughter and gratitude for the lessons we'd learned. Here's to new beginnings, Mom said one evening, raising her glass. To freedom and fresh starts, I replied, clinking my glass against hers. As we watched the sun dip below the horizon, I felt a sense of calm I hadn't experienced in years. We had endured the storm and emerged stronger. The future was ours to create, free from manipulation and deceit. And as for Arlo, he was nothing more than a bad memory, one that would never haunt us again.